Welcome, everybody, to our fourth podcast. Today's topic is, who are these people? What we're going to do today is delve into who made the decision, why they were made, and get into a little bit of the personalities and everything that led up to this. Today is November 23rd, on the eve of the third and hopefully final Saturday opener. I have with me today Randy Santucci, my partner in crime, and we're going to get into some issues and some facts, things, people that were involved in how this happened, how they changed it, and to all of us that are out there that are still excited about deer hunting, but not excited about the fact that it's on Saturday and it's just has seemed to really diminish the importance of Pennsylvania tradition. So with that, I'm going to turn everything over to Randy, and we're going to get at it.
Well, welcome everyone. We've been having good feedback from people that have watched our podcast. They're hearing and seeing things that, they just, weren't aware of. And, first, before we dive into this, I had to pass on a little bit of humor. There was a post on one of the Facebook sites, and I don't know if it was WMU2F or Potter County or something. It was funny. It was a guy sitting there on the porch of a camp with his orange suit on. He was all puffed out, just sitting there. And he was trying to make light of the fact when it comes time to go to the bathroom, which you had to get through to do that. And I want to call it turtle hunting. So any of you guys that have been out there have had to fish through your 3 layers of long underwear and your pants and everything to find a turtle. You understand. So it was kind of comic. I thought the guy was, it got a good chuckle from everybody because we've all been there. And but I hope everybody had fun, bear hunting. And at the same time, we're still seeing all the heartburn and hearing it constantly from the hunters at Likely Monday. Our Facebook group is growing daily. I keep getting notifications, 4 new members, 8 new members. It continues to grow. With that said, in conversations with individuals that have actually called me or reached out to me, they had been typing and sending their own letters from their groups. And I think one thing to remember, one guy a lot of times is on a Facebook group like ours, and he'll say that 6 guys in our camp. Well, a lot of the guys don't do Facebook. Other guys aren't into social media. So I wouldn't relegate the fact of a membership on a group being indicative of only that many people. We're getting a lot. In fact, I had a guy the other night I was on the phone with for an hour and a half, nice gentleman. And he was of that same, he says, I don't know if it's me or what, but I haven't talked to anybody yet that likes the Saturday. So he said, maybe it's because I associate with a lot of guys with camps and stuff. He said, but still, that's what I'm hearing. So that said, the question keeps coming up, which is today's title for our podcast is who are these guys? And I think that question comes from the frustration when you hear the evidence, when you see the situation, when you understand what the compromise would have been to appease both sides of this argument, how the decision could have been made. And that question's being asked more, like I said earlier, with guys now seeing the data, the evidence, and so forth. So I think today Dan and I are going to talk a little more openly and less data-driven things, and we're going to talk about issues that are decisions that are made by the board that at times are highly questionable. And I'm going to start off with a letter here that a gentleman sent me. There was a couple of them. There was very, very good letters, outstanding, that were wrote to and forwarded to all of our Game and Fisheries Committee representatives. And this particular one here, I'll just read it real quickly. I'm writing regarding the change that was made from the Monday rifle opener Saturday. I'm a resident of Washington County, Pennsylvania, and I own a small property management business that operates primarily in the northern tier of Pennsylvania that operates out of Kane, Pennsylvania. I traveled the northern tier dating back early 70s and have witnessed an alarming amount of businesses, recreational homes, and witnessed an alarming amount up for sale in recent years. I have a large coverage area and have communicated with numerous residents and businesses that have felt the burden of change. The primary problem has multiple issues. Camp owners are restricted to a short turnaround time frame and can't patronize the local businesses as they have in the past. Due to Thanksgiving holiday, a high percentage of camp owners have lost their enthusiasm to go to camp and have elected to just not go. The problem then escalates to not frequenting the properties or camps throughout the year because they simply lost interest. For most camp owners, it's a way of life and a link to maybe mentoring a youth into a family tradition that, according to the numbers on the Pennsylvania Game Commission website, is rapidly diminishing. In closing, I would like to ask respectfully to please reconsider the current proclamation from Saturday back to its origin Monday after Thanksgiving. I firmly believe it will make a positive impact on local communities, businesses, and more importantly, our youth being involved with family in the outdoors. You can see there, again, the things that have been brought up from day one. Now, this is a gentleman that has started a business. He is a businessman previous to this on dealing with camps up in the northern tier, and he's hearing this story predominantly regarding that the change has hurt economically the communities, the businesses, and certainly the camps, obviously, for many reasons, not just that. But, and again, in conversation with Jeff, another gentleman, Tim Hamilton, wrote a great article, and I'm not going to get into reading that one too, but it is the similar situation about, I'll just pick a sentence or two. I'm writing you in hopes of capturing your attention regarding the change. And this was to all the legislators. So he went from age 7 or so. I was part of those special weekends with men who became mentors to myself and all the younger men at camp. But because youth mentor hunting was not yet introduced, Sunday afternoon meant I would have to return home to be with my mom and 3 sisters. Oh, how I dreamt of the day I would turn 12 and be able to stay through Monday morning opener. And they go on to talk about, we made countless trips to Grice's Gun Shop, Bob's Army Navy, Jim's Sports Center, and many other local businesses in the Clearfield area. All of the things that we have been saying over and over throughout this. So with those keeping in mind, these letters are still flowing into us, to legislators. The question keeps coming up, like Dan, we're talking, who are these guys? Who made this decision, not recognizing that aspect that we have a 25, 30% of camp culture in our hunting population? That's a significant number. How do you throw that under the bus? And with the presumptions that they had that didn't come to volition. So that's where we're at here. Who made this decision?
Randy, can I interject here? And, and more troubling than that is there's been a ton of letters, thousands over the last 3 years, I'm sure, that have been sent into the Pennsylvania Game Commission. We have yet to hear anybody that has gotten a response, of anything, and so the point here is who are they representing? I mean, the people that are calling in are hunters, and they're not getting a response back. The staff intercepts them. I don't know. I have yet to talk to anyone that's actually had a game commissioner call them or email them back with a response. And that's why we felt the need that we needed to start bringing this to light. That I'm not sure that the Pennsylvania Game Commission is really has our hunters' best interest at heart, and they're making decisions that without due diligence that are hurting what we would characterize as critical parts of the constituents. And I got to tell you, the people that donate land and money at the end of life, where they don't have family, or they've been very strong supporters of the sport of hunting in Pennsylvania, they're the ones that donate the land, and the fact that they've taken and they hurt this group of people that did not want to make this change. The survey showed that in that age group, Where is that justifiable on their part? And not only that, where's the response from them to them? Well, you know what the response was. Well, we did this because we want to increase youth sales. Well, that was a miserable failure. So
the increase, you're right, and that drunken mindset of we want to increase opportunity. Opportunity is not. And I had spoken this past week to an old friend of mine who I'm not going to give his name now, very in depth with the Game Commission, who made the comment to me. He said the same thing to me. Their number one thing is opportunity, but opportunity at the cost of tradition, in his words, cheapens the hunting of Pennsylvania. And I think that was a kind of a pertinent word. It cheapens the experience when you had a situation like we had with a lot of our traveling hunters. And so as we move forward here, if you remember our last podcast, Commissioner Daly, we talked about the eliminations of fall rifles for turkeys. Some guys said, what's that got to do with the opener? Well, it had nothing to do with the opener. But what it did have something to do with is to show a decision-making process at times that's coming out of this board that is more of a personal conviction than something that's based on science, staff reports, legislative input, the things that a commissioner is supposed to abide by as a seated commissioner. So you saw Jim clearly represent, which he called the big lie, of the elimination of rifles for fall turkey. The need was not there. It wasn't in the turkey management plan. The population numbers were not in a dire strait, but yet other aspects were identified, in predation aspects and so forth. So that one decision there took a segment of our hunters, older, handicapped, whatever you want to call it, that used to maybe enjoy that time out in the woods with the fall rifle hunt because they needed the benefit of the optics, the scopes, and things to do what they had. They can't bust up flocks like we mentioned in that podcast. And a decision was made. And that decision, in part, I think there's a history there. And I want to share something with you that I have found out about. And I think in part is what leads some of these decisions are personal convictions. Now, we talked about the Saturday opener. Commissioners like Foradora, I have a personal vested interest. I have 2 college-age students. But yet when the staff reports came back that college kids didn't care that the opener was on Monday, that didn't matter. So you look at these situations there is some personal agenda here. Now, if you remember a couple of years back, there was Commissioner Jeff Mulholland, Outdoor News, wrote an article that one of the commissioners made the claim that he did not hunt with safety orange in the fall. Now, that in and of itself is a direct violation of our game law. And if you think that's small potatoes, it's not. When I served on the council under Governor Corbett, when we interviewed candidates, one of the first questions to a candidate was, have you ever been convicted of a game law violation? We actually had a guy come in, sit down, we started the interview. That's one of the first questions. He was convicted of parking illegally in front of a farmer's field or something, so he got cited and the council kind of looked at each other, and the chairman's, well, we have to end this interview right now. So any violation of a game law is considered, that's the end. You're not to be considered as a commissioner. Well, when this was brought up by Mulholland, Tom Vineski, the outdoor raider, he had went and dug into this further at the public comment session after one of the meetings. And Tom wanted to follow up with, indeed, was this something that happened and which commissioner made this comment? And what had happened here is he brought it up, and Commissioner Fredericks immediately, without hesitation, it said, took responsibility for the remark. And then he said, I never hunt fall turkeys. It was a sarcastic remark I made to persuade a fellow commissioner on the issue, Fredericks said. I said that to make a point to a fellow commissioner. So Commissioner Fredericks' comment was either he did hunt without turkey, or safety orange in that rifle turkey, or if he didn't, he was influencing a commissioner with a lie, trying to push his personal, because from what I have heard from a gentleman that will testify to this, that he heard Commissioner Fredericks makes the comment, we'll get rid of those fall rifles. So you see personal agendas from some commissioners tend to be overriding the staff reports and the science. That part of this thing is becoming more prevalent when you looked into the Saturday opener. We made several references to commissioners that were making personal comments. Dan, I don't know if you think you can add on to that. I can give more examples here of what's going on.
Well, we have the fact that we've reached out to certain legislators that were involved in this decision to get the Sunday through. One of them, Senator Daniel Laughlin. And I have had calls into them, and I've yet to get a response back from him. And I likewise to some of the other senators. Some of this was due to, it was an election year. Some of these guys were up for election, and one of them was a Gillespie that actually lost his seat. So I mean, okay, we understand maybe that they aren't getting back to us because they don't want to be on one side of the fence or the other. But and quite frankly, it's not just one party of legislators. Daniel Laughlin happens to be Republican. So, but there's a fair amount of Democrats that are involved in this too. And there's been quite a few of us that are like, what are they doing here? And I'm not saying Daniel Laughlin, Senator Laughlin, his opinion, I don't want to speak for him, but was against guns. But, there's a large part of this is like, we're all feeling it like, oh, wow, are they going after guns now? I mean, it sort of seems that way.
Well, when you look at, for instance, the letter I mentioned earlier from Mr. Tim Hamilton, he sent it to all the legislators in House Game and Fisheries Committee. He had 2 or 3 boilerplate responses, automatic generated, and he had one from, who was this from? This was Mindy Fee's office. And here is something that goes on. Now, we'll get into more of the commissioners here in a minute, but this is something that, with the legislators, too, having a perception of what the Game Commission's responsibilities are, and they're not allowed to weigh in. It says here, she explains approximately 2.5 years ago, the General Assembly voted to lift the ban on Sunday hunting and expand the hunting season to include 3 Sundays. Since that was a ban on Sunday hunting that was written into statute, a vote from the General Assembly was needed to change it. Okay, well, then they go on to say, and here's what she said, with regard to the Saturday opener, the decision was a policy change rendered by the Pennsylvania Game Commission's Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners also has the authority to set bag limits, modify weaponry allowances, and set dates, as well as make other policy changes. Well, I understand why legislative input can be a problem when you're dealing with biological aspects of the Game Commission and Fish Commission. But when you're talking about a social decision, which this was, admittedly so, by the Game Commission, there should be responsibility to legislators regarding, was there economic damage to these rural communities up north? Was there an impact on family traditions and camp cultures and so forth? And if so, show me the money. Where was the benefit in the agency? Where was the license sales increase? Where was all of the upside of this that was supposed to have happened that we've shown in some of the previous podcasts did not? So unfortunately, these legislators want to not have to deal with this, that they feel they have no voice in Game Commission issues. What in the hell do we have House Game and Senate Game and Fisheries committees for? There are things and decisions that are made. If there's a decision made on weaponry, she says, modify weapon. What if they come out tomorrow and say, you can't use a specific caliber of rifle? What if you can't use any rifle in the deer season? You got to go out with flintlocks and handguns. Does that mean that's going to stand because it's in their purview to do that? No. Purview to do that? So this is part of the problem. The legislators are not stepping up to look at the damage done from this from a perspective in which they're elected for, to take care of businesses, take care of families, take care of things that matter to a lot of Pennsylvania hunters, a few 100,000 of them, and look at this thing through a balanced perspective. Now, as we move forward here, talking about commissioners, to become a commissioner, there's criteria, and I went through the selection process, was a finalist in District 2 years back, and there's a lot involved. There's a lot of politics involved for sure, and you see a situation where a particular commissioner will make statements, will say things, and you sit there. Let's go back to the title of the podcast. Who are these people? How do you make this comment knowing, or what you should know about the tradition and culture of Pennsylvania deer hunting? And I picked on Denny Fredericks a bit there on some things that happened to him or his involvement, which I think is inappropriate. He may have had an ally with Kirsten Geiger. She was and served as a biologist for the National Wild Turkey Federation. She recently she took a job, a paying job. Now, this isn't a membership. This is a paying job for the National Deer Alliance. Now, she took a job of director of grassroots support. Now, I'm talking, you're catching my drift here, conflict of interest regarding sitting on a board seat for the Game Commission and having a paid position on another group that may have like interests, but certainly, let me read the position. I have the Director of Grassroots Support job description right here for that organization. The Director of Grassroots Support is responsible for guiding and managing volunteers in their territory, setting performance objectives, evaluating and optimizing operational performance within the grassroots program. This position must be able to lead and manage people, ensure operations run smoothly, achieve revenue targets, and mission delivery. Key job responsibilities to lead and manage by motivating volunteers to regain optimism, and then it got to the point I couldn't read it because they had faded it away. But to achieve these goals as a director in that organization, could there possibly be conflicts with goals and management decisions that are based on decision science that comes from the Game Commission? If this group has a particular deer per square mile or density aspect that they're thinking is right, does that conflict with what comes out of the Game Commission science? So you have an individual in a paid position serving on it with another group as a director and serving on the board of the Game Commission. So this is the type of things that I feel is inappropriate. You can't serve on two different groups' boards. The Game Commission board should be a singular aspect. You can join clubs. You can belong to the Rough Grouse Society. You can belong because you support them. But you're not in the decision-making process of those organizations, which a director obviously is. So that's one aspect here I feel needs to be brought forth, even up to the governor's office with this particular commissioner's position. There are others. I would like to, I mentioned this before. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but in the meeting when they were talking about the first Saturday opener, when they were in their working group meeting, you had a commissioner, Scott Foradora, who said the comment about, all these guys want to do up there and sit around and party. Okay. Bad comment. Okay. He talked in the meeting he talked to his son's sleepover kids from basketball. They were 14 years old, and he used that as a database that they all agreed that it should be on Saturday. And you keep going on. He made a comment, I'm selfish about this. I have kids in college. And again, the science from their staff didn't show that meant a hill of beans regarding the college-age students. And then in the meeting, when it was first brought up that we were going to change to the Saturday, there was a concern that we were eliminating that Saturday that was a popular pheasant hunting day, turkey hunting day, small game day. And one of the individuals there brought that up, wasn't a commissioner. And he mentioned that. And at that point, Commissioner Foradora, in a fleeting moment of brain fart, said, can we open leave the pheasant season open with the opening day of deer season. Yes, he said that. And immediately the other commissioners looked at him like he had two heads. To make that comment, to open, can you imagine, all the buddies' bird dogs running around and so forth on the opening day of buck season? So he immediately got kind of poo-pooed on that from the rest of the commissioners, and he backed away from it. So, but my point is, these commissioners and their personal aspects, Commissioner Foradora was Senator Joe Scarnati's insurance agent. I guess that's how you get on the board. You sell insurance to the pro tempore of the Senate, you're in. Who's going to question that? So this is part and parcel with, I'm not saying all the board members, don't get me wrong here, but some of these people are looking at things through a tunnel vision. They're in their little snow globe, if you will, of what they think is the right decision for the population of the hunters of Pennsylvania without assessing and being particularly sensitive to groups like our hunters maybe that are 40 and over that had a strong voice of opposition in this. So, Dan, that's the types of things that when you say, who are these people? Who are these people? Well,
and Jim Daly said it. I can't support this policy change, this decision to change the opener when it's hurting. It's maybe possibly going to help one group and hurt for sure the main group, what we characterize as the main group of hunters in the state of Pennsylvania. The guys that financially support the local economy, that make those trips up to camp. I have to tell you, I talked to many, many people, especially guys at my camp. All of us are disgusted with what has happened here. It's ruined it for me. Not to mention the fact that there's other aspects here that they did not get into. Quite frankly, a lot of hunters are football fans, and everybody knows what game is on Saturday, this coming Saturday, 12 o'clock kickoff time, Ohio State and Michigan. Well, guess what? We get a lot of hunters coming in from Ohio, out-of-staters. They're not going to be here. They're going to be watching the football game.
And again, you're right. Another conflict. And as silly as it may sound, we're all multifaceted. We hunt, we enjoy sports, we watch football, and when you conflict these things, it causes problems. And that's where the Monday, you weren't playing a college football game on Monday. There were so many things. And kids today that have Saturday activities in sports, that have their social life on Saturday, they'd much rather went Monday and knowing they were going to get off school on Tuesday. God, people, remember when you were a kid, think back when you got off a day of school, that added a flavor to things, man. You were excited as hell. And we took that away. Right. So now
Bill Jordan produced a beautiful, wonderful video that we posted on our Facebook page that everybody needs to see. And it was really the holy grail of hunting for Pennsylvania. And I reached out to Bill Jordan, and he is hunting right now. But at some point, we'll have Bill Jordan on our involved in some aspect. Not sure, we don't have all the details worked out from Realtree. But clearly, everybody that wants to see the Holy Grail, so to speak, you need to get on our Facebook page and watch that video that was produced by Realtree. Go ahead.
Tell them who Bill Jordan is.
Bill Jordan owns Realtree. All the camo, the largest camo company in the world. And,
if you're a hunter, you know what Realtree is. Yep.
Yeah. So bottom line is, and we have some other high-profile people that will be on our podcast. Don't want to put the names out there just yet, but that is coming. And like Randy and I are committed to doing this. This isn't a money maker for us. This is money spent by us because we have such a conviction to right the wrong that the Pennsylvania Game Commission has done. And we want to call them out on it. We want to hold them accountable for it. And hopefully we can get this thing changed back. We have thousands of people that support our decision. And we spend a lot of money in Pennsylvania. And we support the Pennsylvania Game Commission. And at some point, they're going to have to address this. And Randy and I are here today, and as we've been in the past, to make sure that happens, that this gets addressed fairly and responsibly. And we'll let the decisions fall where they may once they do this the right way. Because this was not done the right way. This was done the wrong way by the wrong people, and it was not representative of the masses out there. We know that there are certain people that the Saturday helps them. But when you weigh that against the progression, or what we have called in the past the Super Bowl, those 3 days were critical to making sure, not just for getting prepared, but for safety reasons, getting the tree stands up, scouting. Everybody knows when you go north or you go southwestern PA, the land changes. There's been a lot of timbering going off to get the canopy down so we can get some underbrush going for other aspects of game that will support. And we're all in favor of that. But you have to put your eyes on that. You just don't. You just can't show up. And I got to tell you, it's a haul for me. I live in Ohio now, but I've been a long time PA resident. I'm a camp owner, and it's 3.5 hour drive in to camp, get everything set up. It is a rush, and I don't like it, and nobody at my camp likes it. So,
yeah, and that's definitely a part, because you see these guys that like the Saturday, and I get that. Well, you can still go Monday and you can still do your traditions. Sorry. If I want to go scout out in the woods, if I want to go move a tree stand, if I want to scout a couple of spots, just in case there happens to be a guy that sets up too close to me, I like to have a backup spot. Shooting rifles around the camps, taking a new hunter out in the woods. How the hell do we do that if everybody's hunting on Saturday and Sunday? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not as easy. Well, you can just start Monday. Well, no, it's taken away the preface of everything that we liked about hunting. It's more than just the kill. It's the whole experience that cemented a lot of guys into the sport through that camp aspect. But
Randy, I'd like to see the Game Commission do a study based upon the experience that the hunters have now. My gut feeling is it's going to show that most hunters, guess what? They're back working on Monday. You've shortened the season now to 1.5 days, 1 day, some 2 days. Because let's face it, and you and I have stood firm on this. We don't have an opinion one way or the other on Sunday. My preference is I won't hunt on Sunday, only because of it's just the way I feel. We'll go back out on Monday. So I'm hunting Saturday, not hunting on Sunday. And when I see a lot of people up on the mountain, there is just not the trucks there that I've seen in the past. They're gone. And on Monday, you don't hear any shooting. You don't see any hunters. It's like it was over. They've actually turned the opening day into the first Saturday. That's what they've done here. They have turned the opening day to the first Saturday of hunting. That's what I'm saying.
It's funny you brought that up. We had a group member post and said this exact thing. He hunts in Tionesta, and he was bringing up exactly your point, Dan. He said, you should have seen the mass exodus of cars across the Tionesta Bridge on Sunday, throughout the day on Sunday. In other words, he noticed it, and he brought that up, how that it shortened, guys might get there Friday, hurry up, hunt Saturday, and they're leaving Sunday. So that aspect, it was funny that you brought that up, because I have that particular post from a group member that this has shortened the experience versus the guys that would get there Friday or Saturday and stay till Tuesday. It had changed that whole dynamic. But moving forward, to try to stay true to our topic, who are these guys? Some of the other comments that were made, and I think everybody needs to know them. And again, I've talked to these guys, but I still have a serious concern of some of their decision making. For instance, in the one working group meeting, Commissioner Mitrick, I believe he's president now of the board, made the comment, I have not, and he said it 3 times, I have not heard one viable reason why the Monday is a good idea. I have not heard one reason. He was so solid in that conviction. Not one reason, well, I'm sorry. I mean, we can give you about 100 if you have 10 minutes to wait.
Or he has the emails that he never saw or responded to.
Exactly.
So,
how can they?
Clearly, you and I both know there's been a lot of people that weighed in on this. And not to mention that we haven't even touched on the fact that first responders' number one fundraiser was Saturday. That's gone. The local businesses, we've heard
one op-ed.
Say they're not responsible for economics. What about their partners? What about the partners that sell the damn hunting licenses? Now, are we going to internet? Sure. And I don't dispute that. But they've had partners for years. This was a shocker and to biblical proportion, and it goes down as one of the worst decisions that the Pennsylvania Game Commission has ever done. And if they wanted to speed up ruining hunting, well, they just did. They made a decision that has ruined it for many. And we are, Randy and I are here to tell you that we're going to hold them to it until it's addressed in a proper manner and get this thing fixed and get it turned back to Monday.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Dan. The decision, because of the players, the Board of Commissioners, some of these decision makers, as I said with Commissioner Mitrick, now we put out one op-ed. I sent an op-ed to the newspapers across the state. We got 1,500 emails from one op-ed. So you have a commissioner saying, I haven't heard one reason. Okay, let's just put that in perspective. And that same commissioner was also called out in an article regarding our work and so forth. And Commissioner Mitrick said it does bother him that license sales in certain categories have gone down since the Saturday opener was implemented. That's what he said. But Pennsylvania's rate of decline isn't as bad as other states. So he's saying right there that the licenses have still declined even with the Saturday opener, okay? He did question just how much of an economic impact the change had on businesses and if it's an issue that's even in the agency's purview. And here was his quote. And I said this in the previous podcast. The Game Commission is not in the business of supporting local communities. Our main concern is the resource and habitat, Mitrick said. So as you see, the decision makers, and when you ask the question, who are these guys? Here is some indication of the aspects of the people that made this decision. I remember Commissioner Tim Layton, when they were talking about, they knew this was going to hurt the camps. He even made a comment that 50% of the hunters are not going to like this. 50%. So imagine that. You're a sitting commissioner and you said 50% of the hunters are going to push back, I think were the words he used, and you still move forward with this? So you think about that, and his comment was to Executive Director Burhans, Brian, remember when I went turkey hunting at your camp? Hell, what did it take? We got there, you unlocked the door and turned on the lights, and 15 minutes later, we're drinking coffee. That was that commissioner's assessment of opening a camp. Yeah, opening a camp in the spring is a little easier than it is in November, December, absolutely. But to reduce the aspects of what we have to do at a camp in a camp culture to that, again, shows you the lack of understanding that is involved in this decision making.
I'll even go as far as to say it's incompetence. The incompetence of this board is clearly shown here, that these guys don't know what they're doing, and they're being influenced by outside people other than the hunters. And that's the guys that they're there to represent us, not represent some other agenda.
And Commissioner Daley, to his credit, when he brought this up, and he backed away from it because he made the competent, and Dan, you said incompetent, okay? Jim Daley made the competent decision, assessing the data, assessing the staff reports. The public comment session of which is they're supposed to evaluate was in the high 80s of opposition to changing the opening day. Well, when that happened and Jim spoke out that he had to resign, and what he said was, I had to resign because I can't serve on a board that cannot assess facts in front of them and come to the right decision. And it was very obvious that the facts were pointing north and they voted south. And so Jim's position and what he did in the resigning, I think, was very astute and very good. Well, guess what the Board of Commissioners did? They circled the wagons. Okay, I have right here what is called the Pennsylvania Game Commission Policy Manual, which outlines a commissioner's duties and decision-making processes and so forth. This was revised since, I think, in 2021, which was since Jim Daly resigned. And the audacity of them to do what they did here, in my opinion, is beyond reproach. This is where the governor needs to start stepping and looking into this particular aspect in this board. Commissioner Daly didn't like what happened. He resigned and he gave a parting statement. He wasn't very derogatory, but he didn't agree. He said why, and he left. They went and updated the commissioner policy manual, and they put a case study in here. Let me read this to you. A commissioner interested in starting in general rifle season on the first Saturday instead of the traditional Monday opener decided to bring this issue up in a January board meeting under new discussion. Later in the spring, the same commissioner reversed his position for this new regulation, but ultimately the Board of Commissioners voted to adopt the new regulation. Well, they didn't say why he reversed his position. They just said he reversed his position. This commissioner was very unhappy with the board's decision and became very vocal to the media and admonished the commissioners for adopting this new regulation. Hardly admonished, he told the truth. Then they go on to say, although individual commissioners should be for vote individually, commissioners must respect the governance process and govern in one voice. Although this commissioner was welcome to explain why he opposed the new regulation, he has a duty and obligation to support the outcome of the vote. He's supposed to support a vote that in no way, shape, or form did he see any evidence that it was the right decision to make. But the fact that they put this they updated their policy manual and put this in here, a commissioner. Why the hell didn't they just put Commissioner Daly? Why didn't they insult him right to his face? They put this in the policy manual because they didn't like the fact that he did call them out on this decision. And this is the type of stuff that this particular board and the players and some of the players on it are causing the problems, and why Dan and I have to spend Wednesday morning before Thanksgiving. We should be getting ready for a holiday having to do this type of stuff, as all the hunters that are weighing in on this that are just going through the motions, going up there. And I've heard it 1,000 times. It just doesn't feel the same. Nope. It's just not. No, it doesn't.
100% agree with you, Randy. It's a sorry state of affairs in Pennsylvania, and until we can get this back to where they are, we have a voice, which we are trying to provide that voice, and anybody that wants to weigh in on it, you guys know how to get a hold of us through our website. We have our numbers are there, our emails are there. You can get a hold of us. We've had lots of people call in, lots of businessmen call us and have talked to us, and this is terrible, and we'd like to see it rectified, and we'd like to hold the Pennsylvania Game Commission board accountable for fixing this. And and
Dan, I agree 100%. Let me, while you said that, I appreciate that little lead in there. Two things. I want to mention one last thing, but I do want to give those two emails that if you want to send an email to the group, which is the hunters that were grouped to reinstate the Monday opener, it's rsantucci, SANTUCCI 2022 @gmail.com, and Dan Davila, DDAVILA 2112 @gmail.com. Those are, and you could play this back if you don't have a pencil handy, and you can email us. But I just spoke to like I said the other day, a person that was a past, I'm going to say it, he was a past commissioner. And a problem up in his area that was further exacerbated the situation was the deer processors. And up in his area, when they went to you got archery season, goes right up against the bear season. Then the bear season goes right up against the buck season. They used to have time in between to regroup, clean their equipment, do all sorts of things. And this is what was in an article in the Lancaster News, again, by Mr. Vanesky, coincidentally. But this particular commissioner, ex-commissioner, told me that his area, they have a lot of Mennonites that have the processing facilities that they do. They don't work on Sundays. They would not take any deer on that Sunday. So that doubly caused a problem. Not only did you have a Saturday opener, now they went to concurrent buck and doe. Now these guys are looking for processors. And one day of the week, the Mennonites in that area that had a lot of the deer processing places, or whatever percentage of, I shouldn't say a lot of, they don't work. They don't take a deer on Sunday.
Right.
So again, the due diligence to have vetted this decision out from all the aspects that it has affected was not done. So I'll leave you with that. But Dan, do you have any parting words, or we can leave it at that for today?
Yep, I think we covered what we wanted to cover today, and we'll have another podcast coming up in a couple of weeks. And wish everybody good luck and be safe out there. And I hope that you have any comments that we'd love to hear from you, and we will post them. If anybody wants to be on the podcast, we would welcome that. And we could talk with you and get you set up so that you could be on our podcast. So bottom line is, Randy, have a happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody else, and be safe out there on what we hope is our last Saturday. And
would that be a blessing?
Yes, that would be. So anyway,
okay.
All right, Randy, signing off.
Everybody, thank you. Have a great hunting season here over the next few weeks, and we're going to still be working behind the scenes. So thanks, everyone. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.